Welcome to Spectrum News Within the Week. I am Rita Enon coming to you live from Uyo. Let's take a look at the headlines. House of Reps begin probe on $460 million Abuja CCTV project over insecurity. Governor Moino presents 1.39 trillion naira 2026 appropriation bill to the State House of Assembly. France to intercept small boats from pressure from the UK. Stay tuned for details of these stories and more in a moment. Good afternoon and many thanks for staying tuned. We begin the news within the week with the nation's leader, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, who approved the constitution of the Nigerian side of the U.S.-Nigerian Joint Working Group, JWG, as part of steps to deepen collaboration in tackling security challenges in the country. The composition of the group was part of the agreement reached during the recent trip to Washington, D.C. by a high delegation led by the Nigerian National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu. The NSA, according to a statement, is expected to lead the Nigerian side of the group and will be supported by a multi-stakeholder team comprising senior officials from relevant government establishments. Other members of the Joint Working Group includes the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Yusuf Toga, Minister of Defense Mohammed Badaru, the Minister of Interior Olubumi Tunjiojo, the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs Bernard Duro, Chief of Defense Staff General Olufemi Oluyede, amongst others. Meanwhile, a statement by the Special Advisor to the President on Information and Strategy, Bayo Onanuga, noted that the President urged members of the JWG to work assiduously with their U.S. counterparts to ensure smooth operationalization of all agreements across sectors. Meanwhile, President Tinubu during the week commended the release of the 24 schoolgirls abducted in Maga, Kebbi State. In a statement by the spokesperson to the President, Bayo Onanuga, the security agents were applauded for their efforts in securing freedom for all victims taken away by the terrorists. He further tasked the security agencies to intensify efforts in rescuing the remaining students still being held captive. Away from that, First Lady Senator Oluremi Tinubu in the course of the week called on government institutions, technology companies, civil society and citizens to take bold, coordinated actions to make Nigeria's digital spaces safe, inclusive and respectful for women and girls. The First Lady made the appeal in a message commemorating the 2025 International Day for the Elimination of Violence Against Women, marked globally on the 25th of November. This year's theme, Unite to End Digital Violence Against All Women and Girls, focuses attention on the growing threats of online harassment, exploitation and gender-based hate. Senator Oluremi said digital platforms intended to encourage learning, connection and productivity have increasingly become spaces where women and girls face bullying, blackmail, stalking and targeted misogyny. She warned that the rise of online abuse constitutes a serious and often invisible extension of gender-based violence. In a separate development, the federal government within the week initiated the process to upgrade Victor Atta Airport in Uyo to international status, which would enable it to receive and process international passengers. The Minister of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Festus Keyamo, stated this when he hosted the Governor of Akwa Ibom State, Pastor Umar Eno. In Abuja, Keyamo stated that the airport has all standard maintenance, repair, overhaul, and a runway of over 3 kilometers, which can accommodate bigger aircraft. The governor, while commending the federal government and the minister for the approval, noted that the airport is equipped for international operations, stressing that the state government will construct a cargo terminal and residential buildings for the staff of the airport. And in the meantime, the federal government during the week urged youth to embrace automotive innovation to develop the country. It said automotive intelligence aligned with President Bola Tinubu's renewed commitment towards youth development, skill advancement and strategic transformation of Nigeria's automotive landscape. Speaking in Ibadan at a program, Youth Empowerment Through Automotive Innovation 2025 conference, the Special Assistant to the President on Youth Initiative, Monitoring and Delivery, Dr. Titi Lope Gbadamosi, said Nigeria was investing in mobility, technology, clean energy transition, and digital innovation. Meanwhile, the Director General of National Automotive Design and Development Council, NACD, Joseph Osanipi, said innovation was fast growing and youths needed to catch up with it. He noted that the step became necessary because youths were the engine room of the nation building and its innovation. Also, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, Gas, Ekperikpe Ekpo, in the course of the week warned against unauthorized gas retail operations across the country, stating that the federal government would not hesitate to take action against them. The warning comes on the heels of the reported gas explosion incident at the Biodun Aladun area of Ona Ara local government area of Ibadan, the Oyo state capital, where 3 persons were confirmed dead. Reports say the explosion occurred while a tanker was discharging gas into a retail outlet. While ECHO mourned the families of the victims, he warned that the operation of illegal gas retailers will no longer be tolerated in the downstream sector. Meanwhile, the Minister of Art, Culture and Creative Economy, Anatu Musawa, within the week identified division amongst women as a major factor contributing to their continued exclusion from politics and governance in Nigeria. Musawa said, although Nigerian women have historically shown enormous capacity to mobilize for social and political change, as exemplified by iconic figures such as the late Fumilayo Ransom Kuti, Chief HRD Awolowo and Margaret Ekpo, women have yet to harness their strength in unity to claim their rightful place in leadership. She spoke in Ikene Remo, Ogun State, at a special dialogue with the theme, Breaking Barriers or Standing Still, Nigerian Women in Politics 30 Years After Benjin. A communique issued at the end of the dialogue and signed by Tokumbo Awolowo Dosumo stated that for Nigeria to reclaim its future, it must adopt political practices that are inclusive, intersectional, intergenerational, and deliberately female-friendly. From the Green Chambers, the House of Representatives yesterday commenced an investigation into the utilization of the $460 million loan for the CCTV project in Abuja, with assurances of collaboration from the Ministry of Finance, the Budget Office of the Federation, and the Debt Management Office. The Speaker of the House, Abbas Tajuddin, said that the House cannot afford to sit back and watch as the security of Nigerians is compromised, but will deploy legislative means to address the rising insecurity in the country. Abbas, who spoke while inaugurating the special ad hoc committee to investigate rising insecurity and loss of several lives in the FCT, despite the CCTV project secured with a Chinese loan of $460 million, said the House intends to find out the state of the project and where the money went. He added that despite the huge investment, crimes of kidnapping and robbery occur with frequent loss of lives and property, turning the city into a nightmare for residents. On judicial matters, Justice Mohammed Umar of the Federal High Court in Abuja within the week adjourned the trial of Senator Natasha Akpoti-Uduaghan for alleged cybercrime until February 4, 2026 for the commencement of trial. The matter, which was fixed for Monday by Justice Mohammed Umar, could not proceed due to the judge's absence. The matter also did not hold on October 21st due to the protest organized by activist Omoyele Sowore to demand the release of Nnamdi Kanu, who was recently convicted on terrorism offenses. Justice Umar had on September 22nd fixed October 21st for the hearing after the trial was stalled owing to the objection raised by the defendant. Akpoti-Uduaghan was arraigned on June 30 on a 6-count charge filed by the Director of Public Prosecution of the Federation, Mohammed Abubakar. Meanwhile, the Court of Appeal in Abuja yesterday struck out the appeal by the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu, who has been convicted of terrorism on grounds that it lacked merit and had become academic, following his conviction for terrorism offenses by a federal high court in a judgment on November 20. Delivering judgment, a 3-member panel of the appellate court found the Kanu's claim that his fundamental rights to human dignity, rights to quality healthcare and religion were being breached by his continued detention in the facility of the Department of State Services was no longer feasible since his conviction. Life imprisonment sentence and remand in prison custody. In the lead judgment, Justice Bolokuromo Ogo held that the substance of the case had become academic because Kanu's lawyer, Maxwell Okpara, confirmed at the day's proceeding that his client was being held in Sokoto prison. Subsequently, the court could no longer order for him to be moved to Kuje prison, to which he had sought to be relocated to from the DSS custody. Justice Ugo further held that, having earlier exhibited preference for prison custody, the court could no longer grant his prayers since he had been convicted and sent to the prison where he had wanted to be kept. In another development, the Federal Capital Territory Administration, FCTA, yesterday commenced the enforcement actions on a total 1,095 property titles in the FCT that were revoked over non-payment of ground rent, certificate of occupancy, penalty violation fee and land use conversion fees. The 1,095 property titles in Asokoro, Maitama, Gariki and Wuse districts of the Federal Capital City, FCC, reports say the owners had ignored a series of public notices made from May to November 2025 by the FCTA in the national dailies, online platforms and television stations, requesting defaulters to settle their financial obligations, liabilities or risk losing their titles. This was contained in a public notice by the FCTA and made public by the spokesman of the FCT, Minister Nyesom Wike. Back here, Akwa Ibom State Governor Pastor Omoino during the week presented a 1.39 trillion appropriation bill for 2026 to the State House of Assembly for consideration and approval, while describing it as the people's budget of expansion and growth. Presenting the budget on the floor of the Assembly, the governor proposed a 1 trillion naira budget as against the approved revised provision of 1,650 billion naira only of 2025, representing a decrease of 16% from the 2025 revised budget. The 2026 budget is made up of 354.867 billion naira for recurrent expenditure and 1,035 trillion naira for capital expenditure. Governor Oino highlighted remarkable progress across the Arise agenda, including the support to over 69,000 farmers, the ongoing palm crop revolution, model schools, healthcare upgrades and extensive infrastructural development. The governor governor noted that more than 900 kilometers of roads are currently under construction statewide, with none abandoned, alongside improved security, water projects, tourism, aviation, social welfare and SME growth. Governor Enoh reported major gains in healthcare, including the re-engagement of 1,300 retired workers, recruitment of 2,000 new staff, hospitals and primary health center upgrades, and progress on the new International Hospital and Diagnostic Center. On education, he reaffirmed that it remains the state's strongest weapon against poverty. Government House correspondent Jane Uwa reports that in his response, the Speaker of the House, Udeme Otong, commended the governor for the impact of the Arise agenda, noting that it has brought succor and renewed hope to the people of Akwa Ibom State. He assured that the House would thoroughly scrutinize the budget to ensure efficient resource allocation and prioritization of projects that only uplift the people.
Mr. Speaker, the honorable members of this esteemed House and other invited guests, today I come before you as the Constitution of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, 1999, as amended demands, to present to you the estimates of expenditures for the year 2026, which we have aptly titled the People's Budget of Expansion and Growth. Mr. Speaker, in about 2.5 years, we have done a lot across sectors, but we still remain dedicated to expanding on these achievements with the budget we are presenting before the House this afternoon. Government has proposed a total budgetary outlay of 1,390 billion naira only for the 2026 financial year, as against the approved revised provision of 1,650 billion naira only for 2025, representing a decrease of 16% from the 2025 revised budget. The total outlay of 1,390 billion naira is made up of 354 billion 867 million naira for recurrent expenditure, or 25% of the budget, and 1,035 million naira for capital expenditure, representing 75% of the total budget. The allocation of 75% of the total budget to capital expenditure is intentionally meant to accelerate and stimulate economic activities in the state in the 2026 financial year. The capital estimate consists of 387 billion naira for roads and other infrastructure, 31 billion for education, 136 billion for health, amongst others. State government revenue estimates. A total projected revenue, recurrent revenue for 2026 is estimated at 1,146 million naira, as against the revised provision of 1,255 billion naira, representing a 9% decrease in revenue projection for 2026. Revenue recurrent expenditure. For the 2026 fiscal year, recurrent expenditure, which is proposed at 354 billion 866 million naira, is made up of personnel cost 131 billion 152 million naira, overhead cost 223 billion 715 million naira, total recurrent expenditure, 354,867,000,000 naira. The total capital receipt and expenditure for the year 2026 is estimated at 1,035,000,000,000 naira, as against the approved revised provision of 1,224,000,000,000 naira for 2025. A total capital receipt shows that 791,978,000,000 will be transferred from the Consolidated Revenue Fund, while the balance of 243,155,000,000 naira is to be realized from other capital projects. The Honorable Commissioner for Budget and Economic Planning and his finance counterpart will, as usual, provide details on the sectoral allocation, so I don't bore this House with that at this time. Let us reiterate that the 2026 People's Budget for Growth and Expansion reflects the request made by the stakeholders of each of the 31 local government areas during our town square meetings. Mr. Speaker.
And in the meantime, the Institute of Chartered Secretaries and Administrators of Nigeria, ICSAN, on Tuesday held its 6th annual ICSAN Summit in Uyo in partnership with IBOM Air. This year's summit explored the theme, redefining governance in a dynamic regulatory era, aligning policy, compliance and corporate strategy. A key highlight of the discussions was the ongoing transition from the Federal Inland Revenue Service (FIRS) to the Nigerian Inland Revenue Service (NIRS), a major regulatory shift shaping national governance frameworks. Opening the event, His Lordship Theresa Untong introduced the theme for the conversations and did set the tone for subsequent discussions.
Today's gathering marks another milestone in our continued pursuit of excellence in governance, public administration, and institutional leadership. This year's summit is anchored on the theme, redefining governance in a dynamic regulatory era, aligning policy, compliance, and corporate strategy. This is a timely and strategic theme. Across Nigeria and indeed the world over, we are experiencing unprecedented regulatory shifts, rising demands for accountability, evolving expectations of corporate responsibility, and the increasing integration of digital systems into governance processes. The future belongs to institutions that can adapt, align, and innovate. So today's summit seeks to equip us.
In her remarks, the President and Chairman of the Governing Council of ICSAN Nigeria, Uto Ukbana, commended the Akwa Ibom State Chapter for its diligence, commitment, and exemplary organization, describing it as one of the most outstanding chapters nationwide in promoting sound governance and quality leadership. She urged organizations to embrace technological advancements, particularly artificial intelligence, to remain competitive in the fast-evolving global economy.
In an era characterized by policy transitions, shifting regulatory thresholds, increased global scrutiny, and we can see what's happening in Nigeria now, and technological disruption, for organizations to remain competitive and for governance professionals to stay relevant, we must not only respond to these changes, but also anticipate, understand, and leverage them strategically. The changes place a unique responsibility on governance professionals to serve as translators between policy and practice and between regulation and operational strategy. Today's summit, therefore, provides us an ideal platform to interrogate these realities, generate actionable insights, and equip our members, and indeed all participants, with the tools and perspectives needed to navigate this new governance terrain.
Delivering a keynote address, the PDP National Publicity Secretary, Inyeme Mobong, emphasized that governance must be seen as a strategic function grounded in anticipation, integration, and alignment. He urged business leaders to act in ways that harmonize political realities without compromising human values.
Every other factor, leadership is the vehicle that has the capacity to transform nation, companies, organizations from point to point. We have seen evidence of how transformational leadership was capable of delivering better outcomes in one nogales over the other. Everything, I dare say everything, rises and falls to leadership. And this is one area that I'm sure that AI will struggle with, because leadership has to juggle with subjective values. Leadership is not just about using objective facts to reach decisions, but also about how decisions feel. And the feeling has nothing to do with the objectivity. So, and you do know that the aggregation of this feeling will have not just economic impact. This accounts for why you can see that people do not care what that policy offers. They care about how they feel about that policy. Since good governance does not happen by chance, and from experience and observation, significant attainments have been made by questioning, not by following status quo. We need to intentionally create safe spaces for constructive dissent within our structure. It's difficult, but that's the only way progress can be made. And if you don't allow spaces, safe spaces for dissent, those people will leave your company and join your opponent who is willing and able to give them, and they will become your competitors.
The summit concluded with interactive panel sessions addressing key issues such as the transition from FIRS to NIRS, governance, compliance trends, and Nigeria's investment climate. Present at the event were the Vice President of ICSAN, Francis Oyewale, the past Chairman of the Akwa Ibom Chapter, Andy Amos, Barrister Imea Sibong, Justice Ita Ibamba, Annie Senate, Group Manager, Marketing and Communications at Ibom Air, Imelda Abba, Group Manager, Corporate Services at Ibom Air, Professor Idoreyin Ayo, Treasurer Onyeka Chu, former ICSAN President Fumi Okundayo, and the Summit Chairman Umana, represented by Victor Iyanang, amongst others. And still to come in the news. World Bank canvasses slash of import tariff to lower inflation. Stay tuned for details of this story and more in a moment. Many thanks for staying tuned and welcome back to Spectrum News Within the Week. Moving to Africa now, where the Economic Community of West African States, ECOWAS, during the week suspended Guinea-Bissau from its decision-making bodies over a coup in the West African country. ECOWAS Mediation and Security Council took the decision after an emergency meeting on Thursday. The MSC said at the end of the virtual meeting under the chairmanship of Julius Maada Bio, President of Sierra Leone and chairperson of the authorities of ECOWAS heads of state and government, that the Council decides, in accordance with the provisions of the ECOWAS Protocol on Democracy and Good Governance 2001, to suspend Guinea-Bissau from all ECOWAS decision-making bodies until the restoration of full and effective constitutional order in the country. Recall that military officers took over power in Guinea-Bissau on Wednesday, about 3 days after the country's disputed presidential and legislative elections. Meanwhile, UN Secretary-General Antonio Guterres yesterday condemned the coup d'etat perpetrated by elements of the military in Guinea-Bissau. In a statement issued by Stefan Dujarric, spokesperson for the Secretary-General, Guterres condemned any attempt to violate constitutional order. The UN chief stressed that any disregard of the will of the people who peacefully cast their vote during the November 23rd general election constitutes an unacceptable violation of democratic principles. The Secretary-General called for the immediate and unconditional restoration of constitutional order as well as the release of all detained officials. And still in Africa, leaders from Africa and Europe meeting in the Angolan capital Luanda within the week committed to strengthening trade and better tackling illegal migration. Marking 25 years of AU to EU relations, the 2 days of talks which ended on Tuesday saw the European Union pledge to support African nations develop, industrialize and diversify their exports. They welcomed the progress made in implementing the Global Gateway African-Europe Investment Package, which mobilizes public and private funds for infrastructure, energy and digital connectivity. The 150 billion euros program is intended to strengthen growth and accelerate climate and digital transitions. The summit aimed to deepen both economic and security ties between the two continents, with delegates emphasizing the need to achieve peace through multilateralism. On the foreign scene, France yesterday agreed to start intercepting small boats in the Channel following months of pressure from the UK. The change in policy comes after Prime Minister Keir Starmer wrote to President Emmanuel Macron urging him to go back to the plan, saying UK currently have no effective deterrent in the Channel. The Maritime Police Force has confirmed to reporters that French security forces will be allowed to stop the small boats at sea, but only before they have picked up their passengers. Reports say French police have rarely intervened to stop the overcrowded boats leaving the coastline because it is considered too great a risk to both officers and civilians. Elsewhere, Donald Trump yesterday said that he will permanently pause migration to the U.S. from all third world countries. The U.S. president wrote in a social media post that the decision would allow the U.S. system to fully recover from immigration policies that have eroded the gains and living conditions of many Africans. He did not provide detail of the plan or name which countries might be affected. Trump's comments comes a day after an Afghan national was accused of shooting 2 members of the National Guard in Washington, D.C., one of whom, Sarah Beckstrom, has died. Meanwhile, President Donald Trump within the week said he agreed to visit Beijing in April and invited Chinese President Xi Jinping for a state visit later next year, following a phone call between the two leaders. According to the president and China's foreign ministry, Trump and Xi, who met nearly a month ago in South Korea, discussed a range of issues including trade, Russia's invasion of Ukraine, fentanyl and Taiwan. Recall that the leaders met in Busan, South Korea in October, after which they agreed to a truce on tariffs. The U.S. decided to cut a 20% tariffs in half, aimed at decreasing the flow of fentanyl. And still on the foreign scene, President Putin during the week doubled down on his core demands for ending the war in Ukraine, stating that Russia will lay down arms only if Kyiv's troops withdraw from territory claimed by Moscow. Reports say Putin has long pushed for legal recognition of the Ukrainian territories Russia has seized by force. They include the Crimean Peninsula, which it illegally annexed in 2014, and the Donbas, which is made up of Luhansk and Donetsk, which Moscow now occupies for the most part. For Kyiv, which was ruled out of relinquishing the parts of Donbas it still holds, rewarding Russia for its aggression is a non-starter. Speaking to reporters during the trip to Kyrgyzstan, Putin accused Kyiv of wanting to fight to the last, Ukrainian, which he said Russia was in principle also ready to do so. On our business news, World Bank in the course of the week advised the federal government to urgently cut import tariffs and remove ban on some import items to reduce rise in prices of goods and services. According to the World Bank Country Director for Nigeria, Matthew Vergis, the measures, if applied, will reduce poverty rate. Vergis, who spoke in Lagos, noted that high inflation erodes the purchasing power of millions of Nigerians in its Consumer Price Index and its report for October. The National Bureau of Statistics, NBS, puts the inflation rate at 16.05%, down from the September figure of 18.02. According to the NBS, it was the 7th consecutive month of decline and the lowest in 3 years. Elsewhere, the federal government within the week dug out more than 60 billion naira linked to 28 financial irregularities in the operations of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited. A breakdown of the transactions published in the Auditor General's 2022 Annual Report on Non-Compliance Volume 2 listed the undocumented questionable payments involving 30.1 billion naira, $51.6 million, 14.3 million pounds, and 5.17 million euros. The total amounts to about 61.1 billion naira when converted to naira. The report accuses NNPC Limited of unauthorized environments, tax infractions, irregular procurement, abandoned projects, weak internal controls, and unsubstantiated settlements. The report has been transmitted to the National Assembly. According to the audit, a total of £14,322,420 and 59 pence was spent by the Foreign Office during the period under review, covering personnel costs, fixed contract expenses, and other operational needs. And in the meantime, the Nigerian National Petroleum Company Limited, NNPCL, during the week declared a profit after tax of 5.4 trillion naira for the financial year ended 2024, marking one of its strongest performances since its transition into a limited liability company. The Group Chief Executive Officer of NNPCL, Bayo Julari, announced this as the financial results during a press briefing in Abuja. The latest figures represent a sharp improvement from the 2023 financial year, when the company posted a profit after tax of 3.29 trillion naira. The 2024 profits reflect a 64% year-on-year increase, signaling the impact of higher production volumes, cost-cutting measures, and enhanced operational efficiency across its assets. And still to come in the news. Nigeria to host Maiden African Boxing Congress. Stay tuned for details of this story and more stories in a moment. Many thanks for staying tuned and welcome back to Spectrum News within the hour. In health, Nigeria is leading Africa in reported diphtheria cases, with 8,584 confirmed infections and 884 deaths. Between January 1st and November 2nd, 2025, the WHO reports showed that Nigeria continues to account for the highest number of diphtheria cases in the African region, according to Médecins Sans Frontières, also known as Doctors Without Borders, announcing that it has been scaling up its diphtheria emergency response in collaboration with several state ministries of health since August due to a significant increase in diphtheria cases in Borno, Kano and Bauchi. The WHO highlighted that the outbreak overlaps with areas targeted by the Big Catch-up Initiative challenges, including delayed laboratory confirmation, poor infection prevention and control practices, limited information, education, and communication materials. And vaccine shortages, it further said that discussions with Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance, are ongoing to secure additional support. Meanwhile, the government of Japan, in collaboration with the World Health Organization (WHO), in the course of the week donated $500,000 in commodities, equipment, training, surveillance tools and emergency preparedness support to strengthen Nigeria's cholera response. As part of the support, life-saving commodities valued at $104,951 were delivered to the federal government through the Nigerian Center for Disease Control and Prevention in Abuja. Speaking at the handover ceremony in Abuja, the WHO representatives and head of missions to Nigeria, Dr. Pavel Osu, said that the donation came at a critical time as cholera transmission risks remain high in areas with limited access to clean water and sanitation. He noted that the supplies will be deployed strategically to hotspots identified through surveillance and risk mapping. And still in health, Nigeria within the week met 2 of the 3 2030 global HIV targets, indicating significant progress in the country's response to epidemic and its efforts to improve HIV prevention, testing and treatment. This was disclosed by the Director General of the National Agency for the Control of AIDS, NACA, Dr. Temitope Ilori, during a press conference in Abuja. The DG noted that the agency's collaboration with civil society and community-led organizations has further strengthened community systems, expanding access to HIV testing, prevention and treatment services, especially among key populations, adolescents and young people. She said that despite progress, serious challenges persist, including ongoing stigma, discrimination, dependence on external funding, and limited access to services in hard-to-reach areas. And now to sports, where the Confederation of African Football yesterday announced the list of match officials set to officiate the Total Energies CAF African Cup of Nations Morocco 2025 that will take place from December 21st, 2025 to January 18th, 2026. A total of 73 highly experienced officials comprising 28 referees and 18 VAR officials have been appointed for the edition of Africa's biggest football competition. No Nigerian referee made the list. The carefully selected officials represent all regions of the continent and include some of Africa's most experienced referees who have officiated across a number of major CAF competitions in recent years. All appointed matches officials are expected to arrive in Morocco on December 15, 2025 for an intensive preparatory course ahead of the competition. And in the meantime, the Super Eagles will set up a training camp in Egypt next month to prepare for the 2025 African Cup of Nations. According to reports, the camp will open on Wednesday, December 10th. The three-time African champions will do battle with the Pharaohs of Egypt in a friendly 4 days later. Meanwhile, head coach Eric Shell is expected to submit his final list for the competition on December 11th. The Super Eagles are drawn in Group C with Tanzania, Tunisia and Uganda. They will face the Taifa Stars of Tanzania in their opening fixture on Tuesday, December 23rd. And still in sports, Nigeria will host the inaugural African Boxing Congress and Boxing Gala Night on Sunday, December 28, 2025, which will bring together representatives from over 20 affiliated national federations from across Africa to Lagos. The Nigerian Boxing Federation, NBF, under the leadership of Wale Edun, secured the hosting rights for the landmark event from African Boxing, the governing body for the continent's Boxing Confederation, and an arm of World Boxing, the international body for Olympic-style boxing. In a letter to the NBF, African Boxing described Nigeria as a strategic nation with the capacity to lead the holistic advancement of the squared ropes and sports in the continent. The letter also announced the appointment of NBF Vice President Omonle Imadu as member of the African Boxing Working Committee, with additional responsibility as head of organization for the forthcoming Congress. Moving now to entertainment, Burna Boy's No Sign of Weakness US tours, including yesterday's performance at the Armory in Minneapolis, was cancelled after fans failed to buy tickets. Ticketmaster announced the last-minute cancellation on its website. Yesterday's show was cancelled with another concert scheduled for December 1st, 2025 in Chicago. While the tour organizers failed to provide a specific reason for the cancellation, the development came amid the public criticism directed at Burna Boy after he walked out a couple for still sleeping during his performance at Colorado. And still on the entertainment scene, a British singer-songwriter, Olivia Dean, has described the concert ticketing business as exploitative and rife with inequality after securing her fans a partial refund from Ticketmaster and ASX. The star's comment came after some resale tickets from her North American tour were listed at more than 14 times their original face value, with prices rising above $1,000. And that's all we have for you on the news at this time. Do ensure to follow us on social media and subscribe to our YouTube channel, all of which you can find on our website, spectrumtvlive.ng. You have been watching Spectrum News Within the Week. I am Rita Inung. Enjoy the rest of your day.